Hi everyone, and welcome to the Team Bayai YouTube channel. My name is Efia Bayai, and happy Independence Day to all of my Ghanaian people I'm here representing in my Kente, because it is I think it's our 56th Independence Day. I think. Yes, okay. We'll go with that. So happy Independence Day. So we are currently doing the Why Homeschool series. And for this series, I've been interviewing different homeschooling moms and couples that I know that I've learned a lot from and that I admire. And there are different reasons as to why. First of all, during the lockdown, a lot of people have been doing a version of what has been named as homeschooling, and it's not really. It's home learning, whereby parents are like facilitating what the schools of their children are providing them with, and it's in really quite stressful and unique circumstances, and it's not accurately reflective of the true nature of homeschooling. And so I deliberately chose the Why Homeschool series during this time because I wanted to really educate people about the reality and the true nature of what is what I consider to be a wonderful way to educate children and yeah, to invest in families. And at the same time, I think there are lots of misconceptions, and I have been able to learn so much from these lives myself. I've personally gone back and listened to each and every single one of them and made notes, and I found things that I can apply. And what I love about these lives is that there are things that parents who homeschool can apply, parents who don't homeschool can apply. So it's not exclusive in that respect. It's literally designed for every type of parent that's very intentional about their children's growth, learning, and development. And so I hope that you have been enjoying these lives as much as I have. And for today's session, I have an amazing couple, David and Raquel Ajala, on the show. And so when did I become friends with Raquel? I don't even know. Like, my sense of timing is so bad, but they're both Americans, not originally from America, but they're going. I'll get them to introduce themselves and explain more about that later. But they're both they came from America and then they were here for a number of years, and that's how we crossed paths. And we actually belong to the same church fellowship as well, and so we've been able to connect on many different levels and in many different ways. And I just love the way that they go about this whole business of what we call family. And so I really wanted to bring them on because they just have a really wholesome way of doing things and a very wholesome way of being, and I just love their spirit. And so you'll see exactly what I mean when they come on the show. And they have a platform called Cup of Real. So if you are on Instagram, first of all, you need to be following Team Bayai on Instagram. And you also need to check out Cup of Real. And it's cup underscore of underscore real. And they have discussions about, really interesting topics. They have a website as well, and so check that out. But I've provided those links in the description box below. So thank you so much for joining us. I know some of you are live on YouTube and some of you are live on Facebook. So thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. And for those of you who are going to watch this on replay, make sure you type in replay in the description box so that we know who you are and we can say hey as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them on. I know they're backstage. Do you know what? I hope I'm better with this than I was last time. Okay. All right. Can you see me, guys?
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. Hey, how are you?
good. How are you?
Good,
Not
good.
bad. Not bad at all. Is it? What time is it? It's evening for us. It's 8 o'clock here in
So here it's 3 o'clock here, 3 p.m. So
Oh, okay.
3:05 to be
Right,
exact.
right, right. So it's the afternoon. Okay. Thank you for giving up like the middle of your day for
No problem.
yeah, to be here. So this is, please introduce yourselves. Tell us a bit about yourselves.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay. My name is David. I was born in Nigeria, so I'm originally from Nigeria. I moved to America when I was 8 years old. So I grew up in America, went to school here and everything, ended up living here for over 20 years. Raquel and I met, we got married, we went to the UK as missionaries, and we were there for 10 years with you guys in London. And we just came back to the States last September. So, by way of introduction, I'm not sure if you want more than that, or you want to know like what we do for a living or all that, or just kind of.
That's cool. That's cool. How many children do you guys have?
We have three. We have
Okay.
Grace, she's 9, Jael, who's 6, and Malachi, 4.
Okay. And where were you from originally, Raquel?
Oh, I'm Costa Rican by birth, but I grew up in the good state of New Jersey.
Nice.
Garden State.
Lovely.
Yep.
So that is David and Raquel. Thank you so much once again, guys. So
Sure.
I wanted to first of all start with asking you about why you chose to homeschool. I know that in America, homeschooling is a lot more mainstream. Is it mainstream? Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it's a lot more mainstream than it is here in the UK. Like one of the things that people often say to us is, "Oh my gosh, it's so nice to come across a couple who are actually, based in the UK who homeschool because it seems like everyone's an American." So tell us about like the homeschooling scene in America.
Well, it is a lot more popular here than the UK. Definitely, there's a lot more programs, a lot more communities, and there's a lot more, I guess, curriculums and things that are more accessible. I know when I was in the UK, a lot of the stuff that I was buying was having to be shipped from America, so that made it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, there is a lot of openness here to homeschooling. It's becoming more popular, and I think even more so after this whole 2020 COVID and all that.
Yeah, and I think it is more popular here, but when people generally find out that you homeschool, it is still a thing like, oh wow,
Yeah,
so because it's probably more popular just because the population difference between the two countries.
Right.
320 million versus like 65. So you got a lot more people here that fall into probably what's roughly maybe the same percentage or more. I don't know, but it's more. I guess it's more popular, more accepted, more common here. But you still talk to a lot of people who are like, "Oh wow, very surprised that you do it." Yeah.
Oh, okay. And what do you find are people's like perceptions of you being homeschoolers? Was it different was it different when you were in the UK now that you're in America?
I think one of the things that I found when I told people in the UK that I homeschooled is they assumed I did it because we're American. So it's almost like we were trying to give them an American education while being there. But obviously, if you know me, you know that the reason we homeschooled is not because we just wanted an American education. But really, like, yeah, I think that's it. Like they always think, but here they always are, I don't think people don't really ask why.
Well, since COVID,
surprised.
I mean, when my coworkers, I was on a call and with two senior people, and when they found out that we homeschooled, now people look at you like, oh wow, you were ahead of the curve, and it's almost like a heroic thing, like because now people know the struggles of what it's like having your kids, in the house all day. So people kind of admire it more now, I think, because of COVID. Like, wow, oh, you guys have been doing that? Wow, and then they ask
respect.
then they ask you questions. So you didn't feel any kind of disruption because of COVID. We're like, no, because we were already doing this. So then they get intrigued and they ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah. So in terms of you always having homeschooled, let's go back to your reasons why. What inspired you to homeschool? What kind of led to that decision that you made to do so?
Do you want to, or should I?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was more exposed to homeschooling than David was because I had friends in school in high school that they were homeschooled before that. And academically, I saw a massive difference between the rest of us that had been in school together since first grade up to high school and them. And also just their maturity. I noticed a difference. And then I also, when I was in college, I also met people who were homeschooled. And just the way they could work on their own was very different to how the rest of us that went to school, how we functioned and how we expected to be taught, and the other ones taught themselves. So that was one of the things that always interested me. But then, we started talking about.
Yeah, and Raquel had, when we were dating, she mentioned the whole idea of homeschooling. We talked about a lot of things, but I was kind of open to it, and I think my journey would be more described as the time has gone on from that initial, yeah, actually that sounds like a good idea, although I had never been exposed to it.
Right.
For me, things have happened over the last, 13 years that we've been married, going on, 43 as we joke. Things have happened that have just reinforced that.
Right.
At different junctions, I didn't even have as much conviction about it, than I do now, or compared to what I have now. Like now, I'm adamant about why we do it, and I'm so glad that that's the choice we made. But initially, it came from, we were dating, and she suggested it, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. All right, so how would that work? And I asked questions, and then we started talking about it. What would that actually look like? And trying to see the possibility of it, because it's not, it is actually a great endeavor. You want to give your kids the best shot. You don't want to shortchange them in any way. And there's no perfect schooling option, right?
Yeah.
But homeschooling is definitely a valid schooling option.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of people don't consider that because we're just taught that you just send the kids off to public school or private school or whatever if you have the money. But there's so many other options out there, and so we explored it based on that.
And can I just go back to the fact that you had the conversation when you were dating? I think that's so good, because I think so many times, like, people date and, I guess they don't think about the bigger vision, the long term, really deep issues. I was actually having this conversation with, I think it was my sister-in-law actually, and we were talking about the fact that, you know, so many of us, I'm thinking about, like, back when we were dating amongst our peers, so many of us, we dated, we didn't research, the families that we were potentially marrying into, spend time with them, get to know their background, their family history, because all of those things have implications on when you have children. And also, but the fact that, you're having, like, these really in-depth conversations at the stage of dating, I find really impressive. Could you tell me a little bit more about that, or could you expand a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think this particular conversation, if my memory serves me correct, I always had the idea, as far as when we start having children, I would prefer that my wife would be at home with the kids. So, obviously that puts a lot of pressure on to be able to make enough money to afford that. And so I suggested that to her because when we met, I had done a degree in marketing. She was, still in school and doing, different things on the side, like a degree as well. And I just wanted to know what she would think about that. Like, hey, I'm not trying to sound anti-modern age, but I didn't really want a career woman per se. Not that there's anything wrong with being a career woman, but I really want someone that's going to be there for the children and that nurture, especially in the early years. So we talked about it. And then she was not only open to that, but she then went a step further and said, hey, well, actually, what do you think about homeschooling? I want to homeschool our kids. And then that's how it all came about. We were just talking about what we see in the future, what we want, and what we have in terms of what, because you have to see if you're compatible. And I think that's what a lot of people don't do. After you get past the blue eyes or the wavy black hair or whatever it is, and you know, the attraction and the God-fearing person that you were drawn to.
I don't know
you,
whose blue
you
eyes you're talking about. Because mine are
no,
black.
I'm
Her
just
eyes are brown. Her
I'm
eyes
just
are
trying to
like
speak.
I was like blue eyes,
Yeah,
wavy
I'm not
hair.
talking
I'm
about
like,
us. I'm just trying to speak
like
generally for people. But here's the thing: after you get past all that, because you need to have physical attraction and all that, right? And you need to have, you know, some things that you're after in terms of the type of person spiritually. But you then need to know if you're compatible,
yeah,
because
yeah.
you know how I envision doing life may be completely different to you.
mm,
So we may have hit it off in all those other ways, but what if I didn't want kids and she wants a big family? So anyway, we were having these real conversations, and that's how this topic came up. And it was good that it did at that point, because we were able to ask questions. If you know me, you know I asked tons of questions, and we ironed it out and we planned it out. So we know, okay, this can work, and we're compatible in this area as well. So
yeah. And one of the things when this whole conversation came up, my whole thing was I knew for sure that I was not going to work once I started having kids, at least until they were, 6 years old or something, if I had to. So I was bent on that. And if he wasn't down for that, then we couldn't have gone any further because,
Right.
I myself, I nannied children before we got married. And I knew what it was like to raise someone else's kids. And I was like, I just can't. I have to be there for all their first. I have to be part of the whole nurturing phase for them. So for us, that conversation was like quite key because if not, we wouldn't have
yeah.
continued dating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you know, as time went by, obviously we got married, and then you know we were married a while before we started having children. But the time that passed also led to the culture and the societal norms going in a certain direction when it comes to schooling
Yeah.
that just reinforced that decision. You
Mm.
start to see things that are creeping in that, you know, and I'm not anti schooling, but there
Yeah.
are some things that I'm very much like opposite to. I oppose drastically, and we both do.
Mhm.
And so those things just kind of reinforce. So when the children did come along, and you know that 1 and 2 year old stage for Grace, the oldest, all that time was just reinforcing what we already thought we were going to do, because things are just now happening in our world by the time 2011, 2012 comes and we have kids, where we thought, no, definitely this is what we want to do. We knew that we weren't wavering from that at all, because those things just reinforced it.
I can totally relate to that in terms of I think when in earlier years there were times and there were episodes when I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure, if I'm doing the right thing, because I guess if you're any time when you're going against the grain and you're not doing what the majority are doing, it does require quite a great deal of confidence,
Yeah,
because you're going to face skepticism and resistance and so on. And so there were moments when I did have that. And I was like, oh, I'm okay, maybe we'll just do it for primary school. And then, we'll just get them into a really good we'll get them into really good private school, hopefully by scholarship for secondary. And then I guess as time went on, um, and I've always said this, I'm not anti schools, neither of us are, but we kind of feel like, do you know what, it's working. And until it gets to the point where it stops working for either of us, our children or us, we're just
Yeah.
going to continue, especially and what gives us more confidence is, as you've said, we see the results, but also we see certain things happening and we just think, mm-mm. It really just
yeah.
reinforces that we've made the right decision. Um, so yeah, I can, and you know what you were saying,
So,
Raquel, about, you having you've raised other people's children, so I guess I can definitely relate to that in certain ways, because one of the subjects that I taught whilst I was a teacher was health and social care, and my
Mhm.
students had to go on work experience to nurseries, and some of the stories that they came back to tell me about things that would happen in some of these nurseries. And at that point I didn't have children, but I remember making a conscious decision that God, you've got to help me, because I really don't want my children to go to nursery. Like, I made these decisions even before we actually even started having children, because of like some of these insights. and and I think as well, I just really desired to have a very close relationship with our children. And I'm not saying that that cannot be achieved if your children do go to school, because I know many parents whereby their children do go to school and they have, amazing relationships with them. But some certain things did scare me. For example, I was working in a girls' school, and there was certain decisions that some of these young girls were making um, about their lives that I knew that their own parents didn't, and
Mhm.
I had legal obligation not to be able to disclose those things to their parents.
Wow.
And that was very worrying for me. We're talking about serious, serious stuff, and so it really does make you think. And so I think one of the things that's so valuable is to really think about these things before having children, if you're in a position to do so, or whilst the children are very young, and as you're saying, like when you're dating, when you're, when you before even getting married, making sure that you're on the same page, because
Right.
this is a big deal. These are
Yeah.
really, really big decisions. So in
Um,
terms, sorry, go on.
you said something. Let me just say something, because you said two things that made me think. One, you said about going against the grain,
Mm.
Mm,
and this is one of the reasons why it's so important, because this is really to each his own kind of thing. Schooling has its own challenges, and you need to be up for those challenges. Most people probably are not, because they look at it as the only option, the default option, and they're probably not fully assessing the challenges they have as parents when they decide to school their children that way.
mm,
Homeschooling also has its challenges, and you need to fully assess and know whether or not you're up for that kind of fight. But going back to what you said about being against the grain, we had a lot of people who disagreed with our idea of homeschooling. I mean, and not to any diss on them. Like, for example, my brother, he was my pastor, and he still is. And at the time, he has four children that have gone through the public school system, and two of them are still going through it. Fantastic kids, phenomenal. Where he's a good example of why someone can argue for public schooling. Like, hey,
Yeah.
mm,
there's nothing that. And so this is what goes to show you that it's okay to disagree on this, and it's not
yeah,
something. There's no right or wrong. Each person just has to know, if this is what we're going to do, this is why we're doing it, and we're going to stand on that. It's not about, well, oh, you send your kids to public school and that's wrong, or you homeschool and that's weird. You just have to know why you're doing it. But you do get a lot of, it's against the grain. So a lot of people would be like, well, why are you guys doing that initially?
yeah,
Um, the other thing you said that made me just want to add something before you go on is the whole idea of teachers knowing stuff and legally being obligated to not tell the parents. See, those are the areas where I think the public school system has gone too far.
yeah,
These are our children.
yeah,
Mhm.
You weren't there when we went through the blood, sweat, and tears and the labor, and you don't know why we named them what we named them. You don't know the
mm,
prayers that we say over them at night, and the destiny that you don't know. How can you not tell parents
yeah,
something that you know about their young child? How can that be a law?
yeah,
I find that completely insane.
Yeah.
And it goes even further than that, where they're just encroaching on your God-given right as a parent. And it's like they're telling you what can and cannot happen. Or you cannot have your child out of this class. What are you talking about? That's my child.
yeah, yeah,
So those are the areas where I think it goes too far.
mm,
But I just thought I'd
Yeah.
throw that in there.
yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. And I think as well, I think, we did a Q&A on our Insta stories, just in relation to homeschooling. And one of the questions was asking, do you think that homeschooling is going to increase? And I said, well, it's been increasing, when you look at the statistics, and I'm just focusing on the UK. And I guess one of the issues that so many parents are having is they just want you to educate their children. They're not interested in you trying to frame their moral and world view, and this
Yeah.
is where it can become a bit of an issue, and so yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. So
Mm.
in terms of your approach to homeschooling and the way in which you do it, what are your strategies, or what's your approach? Because I know, Raquel, like for a bit, for some time you were doing the classical
Yeah.
conversations curriculum, which I actually found out about that more from you.
Mhm.
Is that your, and then I think you told me about Saxon maths.
Yep.
We told about
Yeah.
that.
So
But yeah, so tell me
I've
about the approach, like the way in which you go about homeschooling.
So we see, I can't put myself in a bubble. I think in many things in life I'm a bit too hippie for that. But the class, okay, I love the classical just way of teaching. Absolutely love it. I think it covers all the bases. But I wouldn't put us as a family just in that. I mean, I don't do classical conversations right now as a community, but I still use tons of their stuff. I mean, it is a fantastic program. It's very well rounded. So what we do is I do Saxon's math. I do the story of the world, which really is linked to classical conversations. Um, science. I do I have them all here because I forget the names. A daily science. I do writing. Writing with ease, and that's actually the same person that did the curriculum, if I'm not mistaken, for classical conversations.
Okay.
So we do a lot of that kind of stuff, but it doesn't stop there. We have, we use the computer. We have programs that they use on the computer and stuff like that. So really, I can't say we're fully classical, but we do take, I think, what we have liked, what the kids have liked. I mean, I could like the whole curriculum, but what I
Yeah.
saw that the kids really enjoyed, and that's how we do it. So
Could
but
you
they've
explain a bit more like what the classical conversations approach is?
so classical conversations covered it was geography, science, history, math, and then English, but it didn't cover certain things in depth, but it gave them really good exposure, and as they get older, they dive into it deeper, and it's set out quite well because as they're growing, they have all this information memorized from their younger years, and once they start reading and start getting into work in those areas, then it all starts to become alive to them,
Right.
and it really does set it out in a way where they really do fall in love with learning. I think. I think the program does a really good job of that. So we've pretty much kept a lot of it, except that we don't. Right now, we're not in a community or anything like that. The kids are, we've worked out a schedule, and Grace and Jael are schooling together in it, at their own levels, but pretty much a lot of the stuff is the same, like history, they're at the same level. So yeah, we just take bits and pieces from what they like, and it's worked out where it is. I guess if someone was to look at our setup, they would say it is classical, but I think our kids do a little bit more workbook than some kids their age if they were doing a classical education. I think ours, they do enjoy the computer as well.
Yeah,
So
they
it's,
do.
yeah.
And so you know how you said that they have you, they're not part, you're not part of a community at the moment. How do
Yeah.
you address or deal with this whole thing of like um the whole notion, I guess, that homeschool children, like, how are they going to socialize? Like,
Oh
are they
yeah.
going to be strange? Aren't they going to be weird? You know, do you get that? I don't know, like, because I've had
Oh yeah.
conversations. So how do you approach or deal with that? Is it an issue? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
That is the first thing anyone always says as soon as you say you homeschool. Besides the is the but how do they socialize?
Yeah.
And it's like, how do your kids socialize? Like, I would love for them to tell me how kids in school are actually socializing when, they're sitting next to someone all day long and all they're hearing is, shh, stop talking. Like, that's not really socializing. So, from us, the social aspect has never been an issue. First of all, we're in church several times a week, and we encourage the kids to be friendly, and not just friendly to, children. Speak to adults, speak to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think really, if you look at them socially, they have as much like as they find it easy to speak to an adult like they do a child.
Mm.
But no, they're in sports, they're at church making friends. We'll schedule play dates for them. They can go outside and talk to whoever. The
Yeah.
maintenance guy comes in and they talk to him. Like, they socializing is not an issue. Like, supermarket, anywhere. If anything, they've learned to actually be social, in my opinion. I'm not saying that all kids that go to school um, aren't social, but the children, when they go to school, they learn to socialize with their age mates.
Yeah.
When you're homeschooled, I have found from, even being in a classical conversations community, that children thrive because they're socializing from kids who are 2 years old all the way up to 16 or so.
Mm.
And they do it really well. So the social aspect has never been my concern. If anything, it's
The
been,
classes or the groups are
yeah,
not based on age, are they? In any of these
no, no. So yeah, and that they're all yeah, they're in classes with like an age group, but they're constantly doing stuff together, and they could be with the older kids, and so there's a lot of space for them to socialize with all sorts of ages.
And to a fair point, what people say, that you do have to kind of manage this and make sure that you don't overly shelter your children if you decide to
Yeah.
homeschool. So
Yes.
there is something to the reason behind that popular question. When children are in public school, they're around children their age for the majority of the day. All right.
Mm.
So for a large portion of the day, they're around that. Now, you have to decide whether or not, I mean, that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's not that they shouldn't be around children, because our kids, like she said, we go to church. They're with kids, in the nursery or children's church or whatever, and even outside church, they go to parks. They meet people. They're in sports and extracurricular activities. They've done different things, swimming, soccer. We just came back from a soccer morning here, so what you guys call football, sorry, football
Yeah.
morning. So, they're with children all the time in terms of a decent exposure.
Yeah.
But when you talk about being with children from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. or something, 5 days a week, now, and you think about what we remember and what children get up to and the things that you talk about and all that, I guess you have to decide whether or not that's a good or bad thing. At what point is it too much? Because remember, the Bible says that childhood and youth are vanity. I know I'm just going to throw this in there, that children aren't going to stay children forever.
Yeah.
So it's important for your children to know how to talk to other people than just children. Yeah,
Yeah.
they do need to have exposure to children and know how to play and just be a kid. But they also, you're trying to build them and transition them from one stage of life into another. So there's no need for an overexposure with people that are young. They just need to have the right balanced amount. And I don't think we have any problems doing that. And if you're on this and you're thinking this is one of those areas where I'm struggling, it might be a challenge, listen, it's not at all a challenge. There are plenty of things to get your kids involved with it, where they rub shoulders with people their age, people from all races and ethnicities and religions, and you don't have to worry about closing them in. There's more than enough opportunity.
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. I remember that we the first time I went to the Home Ed Sports Day here in the UK, it was just for South London. I was literally I was on the floor in shock at just the diversity of races,
Mm-hmm.
religions, and the how many children were there. We're talking hundreds. And this was just South London. Again, I remember one time we went to Kidzania. There was a Kidzania Home Ed trip, and I believe when I went, I'm trying to remember exactly how many families were there. It was something crazy. Like it was a huge. We took over Kidzania, and there were Muslims, there were Jews, there were like the really woke kind of black people. There were Christians. There were so many
Yeah.
different types of people, and so you're absolutely right in terms of the children aren't in a bubble, they're not being sheltered. And so, and I think I remember one time having a conversation with you, Raquel, when you were saying, look, yes, there are, um homeschooled children that are weird, but that's maybe because their families are weird, and if they went to school, they would still be weird, because that's so, but the same, so so yeah, I think there is that it just needs to be said. We're pretty normal people, and how you were talking about how there were some there was there was skepticism surrounding you guys homeschooling, but you still went ahead and you did it. How is it now in terms of with friends and family that weren't necessarily supportive of the idea, or critical of the idea? Like, have they turned around? Do they see the results? Has it
Yeah,
changed their perception?
yeah. I think as time has gone by, I mean, the few people that even it's not that we had opposition, but it's just people who had difference of opinion. They may still feel like they're doing their thing, but no one has an issue with what we're doing. In fact, people have over the years have come to see the value in it. And
Mm,
let me just be honest, COVID has forced everybody to appreciate,
yeah.
the value in
It's
homeschooling.
true.
And
It's true.
a lot of people were caught unawares and unprepared to be able to handle that. But, when you realize that someone that's been doing it, oh, actually, wait, I was wrong about this. So,
Mm,
what does that look like? I mean, people have asked questions, and so no, we don't have any issues at all, and it's never been a big issue anyway. But it's just people have different ways of doing things, and that's fine. I just think the shocking thing is people don't think that this is a legitimate option, whereas it is,
exactly.
and people's minds it just doesn't go there.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I'm on a mission. I don't know if like that's been clear yet, anybody, but I'm on a mission to make it clear and apparent that homeschooling is an option, and it
Mm,
needs to be on par with all the other options. Like the same way that we talk about state school or public, and the same way we talk about private school, we should also be
yeah,
able to talk about homeschooling. It shouldn't
Yeah,
be something that's like weird and out there, and I'm hoping that through our platform, we're able to really educate people that it is a legitimate option that should be considered, and it may well be suited for the type of child or family that, some parents have.
yeah.
And so when it comes to you guys and homeschooling, what's the vision for the future? Do you see yourselves like doing this long term? Um, how is it going and where do you want it to go? Do you have like an end result in mind? Are you just kind of going with the flow? Like, tell me about that.
so as far as the vision, I think um, we're willing to do this for as long as as necessary. Even if this means all the way up till they go and do their tests for the SATs or GCSE, A level kind of thing, and go into university or college. We're happy to do that. It all depends on each child, and what they end up deciding to do. So at some point, if one of our children was a teenager or something, we're adamant about wanting to try high school or something. I mean, we wouldn't be opposed to it because these formative years, we've been able to put a lot of things in them um, that we think is very important for them to have in terms of education, so that as they get older, they can go out there and kind of learn other things, and there's a tether that they
Mm,
have now to home base. But the vision is, as long as possible and as long as it's necessary, we're happy to do it. We're enjoying our kids, so
yeah.
Yeah, there's no rush. If anything, I think one of the things we've always kept at the forefront is just prepare them for being, successful adults. And I don't mean success as in go to university, get a degree, all that. I mean just as a person, as a
Mm,
wholesome person. And I think that's, why we teach them all the different things that we do. It's not just academics. And that's not the only reason why they're home for just academics. There's a lot of other things that we're teaching them. So for us, yes, play by ear. But definitely, if they're ready to go into school and you know that they're going in there as, you know, a beacon of light, then yeah, go on then. But it better be because you're going to be there as a beacon of light.
Yeah. And when it
Yeah.
comes to, you talking about um whether or not they do go to school and that sort of thing, is it encouraging the fact that in America you have so many people, prominent people who've been homeschooled? Like I had a list, and I'm trying to remember. I'm sure like some of the presidents of
Yeah.
the country have been homeschooled. Do you know any of them off by heart? Like there's quite a long list if you
Yeah, I
do
think
on research,
Abraham Lincoln
especially
was
in
one of
America.
them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you think about it, for many years, like homeschooling was like the main way of education.
That was the
Exactly.
only way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then schools were introduced, and I'm still trying to get my head around the history as to why schools were introduced. I've heard different views. Um, I think I heard that like after the war, they needed to facilitate the children in schools because mums had now started working whilst the fathers were
Yeah.
absent at war. But I don't even want to quote me on that because I haven't properly researched that. But so I say that to make the point that homeschooling has been there and it has worked and it has produced amazing
Hmm.
results. And then school was brought as an option afterwards, right?
Right.
And so,
That's
yes,
it.
it's something that needs to be considered, guys. It's something that needs to be considered. And in terms of with the children, potentially going into school, you know how you touched on the fact that you're not necessarily strict on the idea of, them going off to university. Can you tell me a bit more about that as to why you're not like, okay, they need to have a degree and that type of thing? Like, what's your thinking behind that?
Should I go first?
Yeah.
I mean, the world has changed, and one of the things, education has its place in someone's success economically, but it's by no means the end all be all. So there's several paths now to success, um, financially or economically. So one of the things about homeschooling that's really advantageous is the fact that you can inspire the entrepreneur in your child, or you can
Mm,
see their gifting and you can help guide them down a path that maybe for them, is like, water flowing down rocks as opposed to an uphill climb. So we're open to see what gifting God has placed within them and what comes natural. What's God trying to do in their lives? And
mm,
for some people, that may include a university education. That's absolutely fine. And maybe if they want to do that, we'll endorse it, we'll support it. But if they don't, Grace, for example, has shown a lot of entrepreneurial signs for a young girl. And if she wants to pursue that and become a businesswoman, absolutely. You don't necessarily need a degree for that. In fact,
yeah.
like I can't remember the percentage, but there are a lot of, um, CEOs or people who are entrepreneurs and start businesses that they don't even have that degree. So
Absolutely.
it's not the end all. So I guess what we're trying to do is just give them that as an option. If one of them want to study biology or something or whatever because they want to, or engineering, absolutely go and do it. We tell them, the degrees that are good for getting work, like, mathematics, engineering, all that kind of stuff, sciences. But that'll be up to them. If it comes natural, if they're good at it and they want to do it, good.
Mm,
But if they want to do something else, that's also okay, as long as we can help them and they find success. So it's not there's not just one way in our generation. I mean, come on, for crying out loud, you have kids now becoming millionaires playing video games.
it's so
Not that
true.
I endorse that, but there's so many ways now for you to have workable income and things like that. And it's not just one way. So we're open, but we're going to give them their options, and then they're going to decide as they get older.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And thank you so much. So, where can we find you? Tell us a little bit about Cup of Real, first of all, because you guys were like being really consistent and then you moved to America. And so it kind of went quiet, but we gave you some time. But the
To settle
time
down, yeah.
has now passed. And so we'd like to see Cup of Real revive. So tell us a bit about Cup of Real and what we should expect.
Put on the spot.
Go ahead, babe.
Well, Cup of Real was is a platform that yeah, we felt strongly about just putting something out there where people can just have real conversations about real issues that as Christians sometimes we just don't discuss, or they're not discussed in a church setting. And yeah, so that was it. It was us, kind of opening up and talking to other people, and maybe it was their area of expertise, or we had different pastors on there talking about different things. And yeah, so that where it's going, we're prayerful. um, no,
Good answer.
hopefully it will come back.
Sorry, what'd you say?
That's a good answer. Good answer. What she said.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the move. I guess a lot has happened in the move, and
Schedule.
schedules have changed, and yeah. So but we do get a lot of you know, that kind of thing. Where, hey, where are you guys? So we want to do it. It just it can be a bit demanding, which is it's all right. But I guess everything in its place. We have to just kind of really plan and put things together again. And I mean, we have a lot of ideas of talks, but we just haven't had the time
Sure.
to do it, and we want to do it the right way. So hopefully,
Soon.
stay tuned.
Really soon.
We'll see what happens.
Soon. Okay, so you hear that, guys? You heard it here on Timber. They're coming back soon. But if you do go onto the Instagram page, there are some amazing discussions, some really, really deep conversations that they have with various guests that I really would recommend that you listen to. Like if you're into like listening to podcasty type stuff. And we've actually got a question or more of a comment. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to say, but if you do, please feel free to post it or ask. But we've got a comment. Great time and needed this. Difficult homeschooling as a single parent with no family members in the country. We need more of this community. Is there anything you wanted to say to that point that was said?
Yeah, no, we know what it's like to homeschool with no family members around, or just even have a family with small children and no family around when we were in England. I mean, even now, sorry, we live in Georgia and all our families in New Jersey for the most part. So it is difficult. And yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Especially as a single parent.
Definitely.
Hats off. I mean, seriously. Major kudos there to be able to take on that challenge and do that. But where there's a will, there's a way. But absolutely, that community will help, and the support.
Yeah.
Get as much support as you can, and as many advocates as you can, because it can be easy to be discouraged about doing something like this. Much more when you're by yourself. So get those people who are having conversations like this and are advocates for it. That'll help you.
Yeah, that's true.
I know a few homeschooling single parent mums actually. So if you reach out, I'm more than happy to put you in contact with them because you might be able to bounce off ideas. But one of the things that I've observed some mums do is, kind of create a partnership with other single mums. And so I'll take the children, yours included, for, an extra day or what have you. And that gives you a break to do whatever. And then you take the children, mine included. And there's like, a kind of a give and take type of thing, which I think is really important, because one of the comments that I made actually on the Insta story discussion that we were having about homeschooling on our Instagram page is that one of the things I've come to realize is how important support is when you are homeschooling. And because people don't realize that you don't get a break from your children. Like, you see these memes where parents are like, oh my gosh, school has arrived, take them, I'm free. All of those kind of memes that start to show up. And they're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
be showing up because children are going back to school on Monday. So, like, they've already started appearing. But this is the thing, what the parents, I guess, are rejoicing and celebrating is the fact that they get a break. They get some respite. And a lot of times as homeschooling parents, you don't get that as much. And so that's something I didn't really fully appreciate until embarking on the journey. And I think I've been quite blessed to have had my mum for much of that journey because she's retired. But I've really felt it this past year because she's been shielding because she's in
Mm,
her 70s, she has asthma. So I've really been feeling it, and it's made me so aware of what it's like when you don't have support. So I think it's really important to build that, so that because as you need to be okay as well as the homeschooling parent, because if you're not, then it spills out into everything else, and it impacts how you're
yeah.
delivering. Sorry, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, it definitely does. I was going to say it definitely helps you push forward because I know for me, I had a stage where, I mean, I wasn't even saying it to Dave. I'm sure he could tell I was stressing, but I was to the point where there's times where I would sneak away and just cry. Not because it was the kids. The kids were fine. They were great. They're well behaved and everything. It was just because I started to feel the weight of homeschooling, as in I'm fully responsible for your education. I started doing the whole comparing thing. She's not reading yet, with my oldest. And it was really a blessing to have such a strong community. Like I said before, when I was in classical conversations, that some of these moms were like, no, listen. And, these moms were moms of kids that, 6, 7 kids, and their oldest may have been in their teens already. And so many times they just come and just rub me in the back and say, it's okay, Raquel, you're doing great. Look, it literally did help me push forward from that stage, because there was a point where I was like, I don't know if I know homeschooling is great, but am I great for it? So it is really important to have people around you. You may not get physical help, but just even that emotional help definitely helps to push through.
And actually on that, there were times where we had to kind of reinforce each other. I remember those stressful times, and the odd thing would be dropped in a conversation like, well, look, maybe we need to just, and be like, hey, well, look, well, then that would mean this, that, and the other. And then see, having a why for why you're doing, for what you're doing is so important, because we were able to always go back to why. Why did we decide this model in the first place? And once we revisited that, it was always easy to see a path. Okay, this is difficult.
Yeah.
But you know what? This is why. And so that's been helpful to reinforce it.
No, absolutely. Honestly, you guys have been amazing. Destination Africa Group TV. You actually were here last week. The couple, they said, wonderful couple, keep flying the homeschooling flag. You're inspiring people across the globe. So thank you so, and they're actually from Ghana. They put that in from Ghana. So we international, baby. We international. So yes, no, honestly, it's been so lovely to be able to speak to you and for you both to just be really transparent as well. And so I really hope that it's helped somebody. I'm sure it has. It's definitely helped me. And for those of you who are going to watch on replay, as I said, please make sure that you let us know in the comments below. Type in replay. Let us know what you got from this. And do follow us on Instagram. We are Team Bio on Instagram, and we've got Cup of Real here on Instagram. How are we spelling it? It's Cup of Real, right? But with the
Yeah.
underscore between like the cup and the real. And as I said, they've got a lot of good content on there. Great, great, great discussions, that will really kind of edify you. So check them out. So yes, guys, thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you
You're
for
welcome.
having
Thanks for
us.
having us.
And so you guys are gonna enjoy the rest of. We're winding down now. Like this is evening time in the UK, but you guys are gonna enjoy the rest of your day in America. I've kept you for like about 55 minutes, so close to an hour. So thank you so much for giving me the
No,
middle.
thank
No
you.
problem. Thank you so much for having
Send my
us.
love to the children as well.
Will do. Thank you.
Wow. We'll speak
All right.
soon. Right,
Take
bye
care.
everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.